everyone. It's so good to be together. And we have a really, really special day where we have Marjie Hadad from Israel, from Tel Aviv. And this is such a big opportunity for everyone to listen and get a firsthand experience with a very talented author. And I'm just going to fix my lights. I don't know. I should have done this ahead. Um, Very, very talented author and best-selling book. But I cannot have someone here from Israel, from Tel Aviv, and not talk about October 7th and bring the world to you in the best way that we can, make it personal, make it real, because on October 7th, the world was with you. And as time goes on, people get numb, people around the world assume that it's an ongoing static situation. And I don't think it is. So would you pop in here and share about that? You have a necklace on. Can you show us your necklace? What is that?
It says bring them home.
Yeah.
There are over 100, I think 130 hostages that were brutally abducted on October 7th. And they're still in Gaza in the hands of terrorists, being tortured in horrible, unthinkable conditions. And we are all just praying and hoping and doing whatever is possible to bring these people home alive and to get them home to their families and their loved ones. It's a situation that no other country or no other entity would accept as agreeable. And certainly, we do not believe this is the way it should be. I mean, that's the understatement of the year. You do not do what Hamas did on October 7th.
So I don't think, I mean, I'm certainly not an expert, and the only reason I get to have the privilege of talking to you is that we're friends and we know each other in this other way. So I am not pretending to be knowledgeable or be a scholar on the history or any of that. I'm just a regular person, and I don't think that anybody agrees that with what Hamas did or is doing. But you do hear in this country a lot of opposition to what the way Israel is taking. I don't even know what you call it. It's not hostages, but lives in their pursuit of Hamas, everyday people in Palestine. So I know that's not one person, one side is right. Hamas is, I think, wrong in everybody's eyes. I don't think anybody can argue for Hamas or in this country or be listened to. But tell us some more about what's going on in rebuttal to that. All the lives of women and children that are being lost through Israel's attempt to get Hamas back.
Well, let's back up a little bit first, if we may.
Please.
And I will certainly answer the question. But there was a ceasefire on October 6th. There have been multiple ceasefires. I've been in the country for 30 years. It'll be 30 years in next January. And it always starts with some sort of an attack by Hamas. And in the last 10 years, maybe more, it always starts with a rocket attack. And I can tell you on October 7th, I woke up at 8:30 in the morning to a rocket attack. which lasted throughout the day, and then more continued throughout the week and throughout the month, etc., etc. Now, the room that I'm sitting in is actually our safe room. This is where we come during a rocket attack. It's no joke. And this is not something that happened clear across the world for us. This happened literally right here. The attack on the border is an hour and a half, 2 hours away by car. Everyone was impacted in one way, shape, or form, either directly or indirectly. And Hamas has a mandate to wipe out Israel, but not only that, also to wipe out all the Jews worldwide, and then anyone who doesn't want to live according to Shia law. Period. So they start with Israel, they start with the Jews, and then they continue on. Now, here's the thing, Hamas is really smart. They've taken the billions of dollars in aid that they have received over the years, and rather than building safe rooms, like I'm in, where there are people, they use them to build a network of tunnels the size of the New York City metro, and that go deep, deep, deep into the ground to a point where you cannot breathe the farther you go down. And they took over in 2007. Israel pulled out of Gaza in 2005. Actually, remember it. They pulled all the people who were in the settlements over there. They pulled in their neighborhoods, whatever you want to call them. They pulled them out. They left the greenhouses so that the Gazans could start with some version of an, something for the economy. They'd have a head start. The Palestinian Authority took over, and then 2 years later, there was an election, and Hamas won. And for the last 18 years, 17, 18 years, they've been indoctrinating their people and the kids, because a full generation grew up under Hamas rule, to kill Jews, to wipe out Israel. Now, let me ask you something. If a country invades another country, or if a terrorist organization invades a country, is it the responsibility of the attackee to be taking care of the population of the attacker? That's number one. Well, in Israel's case, Israel believes in the sanctity of life and doing what it can to prevent civilian deaths. But here's the kicker. Hamas's tunnel network is laced throughout the entire area of Gaza. They operate in hospitals, they operate in schools, they operate in homes, they operate in any kind of civil infrastructure. And they hide behind their civilian population as human shields. No joke. And the Israeli army is doing its best to methodically go in and get rid of the terrorists and find the hostages. Release the hostages, and that's the end of it,
Why do some people feel, who are more knowledgeable, I don't know what the details are, that Israel's gone too far? What has happened that's making anyone, including the president, say that? What have they?
Well, there's quite a bit of misinformation, inaccuracies of the facts, and a lack of understanding of the kind of situation and the type of warfare that the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, is trying to fight. This is a situation that's never been encountered before by any modern army. And you have to understand that the people in the army, a good part of them are our kids who are doing their service.
Don't you have a child in yeah?
I have a child who is in the army, but she's in the medical corps.
Okay.
So, but I know multiple people who are serving in Gaza, regular people, very nice people. On an average day, they are doing something to help humankind. And their whole purpose in going to Gaza was to find the hostages and ultimately for Hamas to lay down its weapons. Because it said, the leadership of Hamas has said multiple times that October 7th was just a dress rehearsal. And they want to continue to do that over and over again. And I can tell you, as somebody who lives in Israel, I would not like to see that happen again. I mean, I'm saying this kind of lightly, but there's nothing light about it, Rosalyn. There's nothing light about it.
Yeah.
You know, the Muslims and the Jewish community, there are wonderful people in both. Together, we can create something wonderful. The issue is the people who want to destroy rather than to build.
Mhm.
And Israel checks the food, the humanitarian aid that goes in by trucks, because they have to, because weapons can be smuggled. Hamas smuggles people through ambulances. I was reading just today in the press that the army is operating to weed out the Hamas terrorists in Shifa Hospital, and the Hamas is shooting from the maternity ward, as an example. And the IDF was able to take care of its business without hurting any of the civilian population or any of the patients. I mean, that's pretty focused and pinpointed. Are there mistakes on occasion? Yes. Here's how one soldier described it to me. He's the equivalent of a Navy SEAL in the Israel Army. He said it's like playing the most horrific, violent, horrible, fast-paced video game, only it's real. So the guys do the best they can. And some of them are, seniors and they're going back for the reserve duty, but they're regular people, you know. I work in medical public relations. They work in the medical field. On a daily basis, they do things to help all mankind. None of them are going into Gaza to do harm. They're going into Gaza to clear out the terrorists and to find the hostages to bring them home. And we need to do our best so that October 7th does not happen again. And what's absolutely crazy is what I'm seeing on social media and in the news about all the rise in anti-Semitism and the support for Hamas, which is being confused with support for the Palestinians. You can be pro-Palestinian and be anti-Hamas, but the movement is confused.
Mhm. There isn't that much confusion here that I see or hear. People are wanting what you just said. They're wanting to hear more rhetoric so that they can support Israel in coming together with the Muslim community, with the Palestinians. And that is the most helpful part of what we can connect to. The horrors, I think, just disable people. The more we hear, the more we feel, I'm just speaking for a typical person, unable to jump in. But in the coming together of all people is something that I think everyone yearns for. That peace inside, that 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 experience of being other is the one that most everybody's had an experience of, and it hurts. It hurts to be treated inhumanely.
Which is what happened on October 7th and continues to happen to the hostages that we must bring home yesterday. It is so crucial to get those people back. I can't even imagine. We don't want to imagine, but here they are living things that we don't want to imagine. And it goes over the top of all reason. It's just, In any other situation, like if you watch this in a movie, you'd say, oh, that's criminal activity.
Mhm.
These people need to be punished or brought to justice or what have you.
Anything
It's
concrete that people can do to be in the effort to bring the hostages home?
pressure on the government, but which government? Look, Hamas needs to be pressured. Hamas needs to have incentive to give up the hostages, but incentive that's realistic and not because they're going to get a payoff, but because they're going to lose something that they want.
What would that be? What would be the
Well,
payoff
right now, the leadership of Hamas is living in five-star hotels in Qatar. They're living the life of luxury. They're all, gazillionaires. They've been pocketing the money that's been sent for humanitarian aid over the years.
So what would help to negotiate with them?
Well, pressure on the government to put write to your representative. If there's a petition that you see, sign the petition to put pressure on the American
So
government,
little
to put
belief
pressure
right now.
on the mediators, to put pressure on Hamas.
So
For
little
example,
belief.
kicking Hamas out of Qatar.
There's so little belief in this country, in our government right now, just for not even internationally, so I don't think people are motivated to call their representative. Our Congress can't get a thing done because
I'll tell
everything's.
you what else people can do, Rosalyn. They can support the Jewish community. They can support initiatives that call for Muslims and Jews and people of all faith to work together and to rise together, rather than going out and joining violent protests and misleading people. I see these videos of and the statements that people are making. And my first thought is, first of all, you have been misinformed. And secondly, have you ever been to Israel?
Mhm.
Have you ever been in the company of the Jewish community? So before you start making statements that are unfounded and very vocal, loud, abusive, aggressive rhetoric and threatening people and their lives, take a step back and have a look in the mirror and understand that you've been misinformed.
Yeah. Well, prejudice always is misinformation.
Yes, it's really quite frightening because what's very interesting is I have multiple friends who are Israeli and they work with the Arab nations in the area. And what I'm told is that the Gulf nations, even though quietly, have been very supportive. It's more the Western nations that have not been as supportive or have not been supportive at all or very critical, where you see all the demonstrations.
Mm. Yeah, I'd like to see us popularize and make accessible combined faith organizations, because it's only in being together, eating together, working together that we let go of some of these false beliefs about each other.
There's another thing, Rosalyn. We think one way. This is the way we think. The Shia population, the Iranian leadership, the Hamas leadership, the Hezbollah leadership, they think a completely different way. So to assume that they're going to see things the same way that we see things is
No, but
incorrect.
we can mobilize people in our country, in the US, in
We
other
can.
Western countries.
We
Um,
can.
and that is, it has to be grassroots, because otherwise people feel disabled and passive. And that's what I'm hoping, that this conversation gives somebody a life raft or a rope, something that we can begin. If there are more grassroots organizations of Muslims and Jews and Christians coming together, then you can put pressure politically because you have numbers, and we can be vocal and we can demonstrate and we can have a focus like bring the hostages home. Those are things we can join together on. There is no disagreement in this country about bringing the hostages home. There are no people that stand up and have events that say continue with the hostages. So I'm just looking for ways.
But there has been a lot of silence, or
Yeah,
people saying that October 7th didn't happen, or it wasn't as
we're gonna
bad as
have
people are
crazy.
saying, and they're not believing the rape victims
No, no.
and
I
the
mean, that's
burn
always
victims
going to go
and the
on.
decapitations. And I mean,
That's
the
not the
stories.
majority, Margie. We have some crazies here. They say Hitler never happened, the Nazis never happened. I'm Jewish too, so I understand, what that feels like to have your history questioned. But they are not the majority. They may get a lot of press, because the press loves that stuff, but
Mhm.
and the crazies are in Washington too, and they're vocal, but they are not the majority. People who say those things didn't happen. We know they happened. So let's talk about your book, because your book is kind of an antidote to giving up, to feeling helpless, for feeling powerless as a parent. There are themes that when your children are dysregulated or having stages that are difficult for the parent, that your book is a great comfort because it's very practical.
Thank
Can you,
you.
yeah. Can you talk about what is PR parenting and how did you come to that title? And who are you as an author? All those things.
Thank you. Well, okay, here's the shameless plug, everybody. This is the book, The Power of PR Parenting, and you'll notice the artwork. The reason why I chose this artwork, which is the sky, is because that's one thing that anyone, no matter where they are in the world, when they look up, when they're outside, they see the sky. And I wanted this book to be able to speak to everyone, no matter their community, their faith, their country, doesn't matter. This is the one thing we have in common is the sky. So ultimately, PR parenting is meant to be applied universally and can be applied universally because every single person out there has public relations skills. They just don't know it yet.
But tell us what some of those are.
Well, if we think about it, what is PR, Rosalyn? It's communication.
Mhm.
It's how to achieve a defined goal and then reverse engineering to figure out how you're going to achieve that goal with strategies, tactics, and practices, right? And we say, okay, who's our target market? Whether it's a community, whether it's your family, whether it's the dry cleaner, whether it's the kid. And then what message do you want to share, words, tone, delivery, in order to achieve the goal with your target market? That's PR. Now, your goal could be to land a client if you're a coach or in business. Your goal could be to get your child, your teenager, to clean up their room. It could be anything in between. Ultimately, it boils down to communications. So if you're communicating with anyone during the course of the day, you're actually exercising your public relations superpowers. And now you have a name to put to it. Now, when it comes to PR parenting, we talk about specifically how do we communicate with our kids to help them develop a level of self-esteem, to achieve some level of success, and to have some confidence along the way, no matter what their starting point is. And the book shares personal and business stories, professional stories, and shows examples of what worked and what didn't work.
Give us,
So,
give us an example of what didn't work.
not paying attention. When the kids are little, they grow very, very quickly. And I think my biggest mistake was not giving my little one credit for her very quickly developing motor skills. And this story is actually in the book. After a birthday party, she managed to open up a very heavy iron gate that leads to the street. And we had closed the gate. Didn't lock it, but we had closed the gate. We knew the gate was closed, so we weren't so worried, that I went to do the dishes after the birthday party and my husband went to the computer. And my youngest, who was like around 3 years old at the time, managed to open up the gate. Oh my goodness. I was in shock. I didn't know she could do that.
Mhm.
Well, you can read the book to find out the end of the story. But the bottom line is, I should have given this child credit for her quickly developing motor skills, and to discuss with her what would happen in advance if she ended up walking out the gate on her own.
What would,
What the
you were doing a redo now and you were more cognizant of her skills, what would you tell her would be the consequence of leaving the house?
I would explain, first of all, retrospectively, I would have locked the gate as opposed to just closing it. Had I been paying attention and noticing she was able to handle the weight of this very heavy iron gate, I would have said to my husband, time to lock the gate because she knows how to open it. I would also explain to her that there's a very busy street
Mhm.
and it's very, very dangerous. And mommy loves you, and I want you to be safe. So you're not to walk out of the gate without mommy. Period. Just explain it to her. It's kind of like child-proofing your home.
Mhm.
You want to make sure that the edges are, rounded, and the electricity outlets are closed properly, and the stove is, you can't turn it on or whatever gadget. And you explain to your children, do not do this because this will be the net result of it, and we love you and we want you to be safe and remain unharmed. So those kind of things, they already know what the net result will be. So if they're consciously, let me use the word afraid, because that's okay to be afraid. Okay. You don't stick your finger in an electrical outlet because obviously that's not a good result. I'm afraid to do that. I would want my child to be afraid to do that. That's
Yeah.
okay. It's just good sense. And then you cover it up to make sure that everything's okay.
Yeah, that makes good sense. So let me give you a brand new example. It's something that I ran into with my incredible team. So somebody has
Mm,
a 10-year-old. He's pretty typical. I like to know as a therapist if I'm working with someone, a child who's neurotypical or not, because the rules seem to be somewhat different. And you have to know kind of how somebody's brain works, especially if they're very neuroatypical. But this kid is pretty, he's strong-willed, he's clear. And my coworker and I desired to have him take the bus home so that she could assist me in teaching a class, so she could help me with the tech stuff in a class. And he did not want to take the bus home. He has never taken the bus home. And this is kind of something you could call it indulgent, but a lot of his security was around mommy picking him up from school. He didn't have to take the bus. So now you have a situation where his desires compete with her desires. It's not a safety question. I know a lot of parents would have solved it one way. And I kind of love the way she solved it, but how would you solve it?
I would, if I was invited to, I would talk to the bus driver to the school and find out if I could join my child on the bus and do a dry run through with them at least one time, just to help them get over that transition from the unknown to the known. It's kind of like in public relations, before our client goes to an interview or presents, we prep them. Even just today, I have an interview, a very large, and I'm still working in medical PR, and we have a big interview coming up. So I prepped my client today. So same difference with the kids. If we prep them, if we explain the who,
We're
what,
having some
where,
tech
when, why, and how,
on your side.
so that they know what's, I'm sorry?
We're having some tech issues. I think you're having some
Uh,
tech internet issues
it's
there.
probably the time of the day. You'll please forgive me. Yeah, it's 7:30 my time at the moment. So I'll repeat. One of the things that we do when we prep our clients is we run through the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the anticipated event, whether it's an interview or an event. And then if we can, we do a walkthrough, like a media training or a presentation training. So the same thing with the kids when they're making a transition or they're anxious about doing something that they've never done before.
Mhm.
Do the who, what, where, when, and why advanced briefing. If you can, go with them on the bus so that they can understand what it is exactly, and
Mhm.
to have that safety with you there as they're doing it. And then the next time, no big deal. Been there, seen it, and done it.
Mhm.
Walk through the park.
I love that. And I like the way you solved it. Let's talk about how people can work with you. I know they can buy the book, it's on Amazon. How else can they buy the book?
It's on Barnes and Noble.
Okay.
It's available online. If you plug in my name or you plug in the name of the book, you will find multiple listings for it. And you can always reach out to me on my website, which is www.prfor period life, PR4 period life, or you can reach out to me on Instagram, which is at Marjie Hadad, and Marjie spelled with the J, Marjiehadad. And
Great.
you had asked me a question earlier, Rosalyn, about how I came to this book. It was the idea of my older daughter. I have 3 kids, boy, girl, all grown. It was the older daughter. She said, Mom, you made mistakes, but overall, I think you got it right. I think you should help the next generation of parents, mentors, entrepreneurs figure out this work family balance thing based on your experience and expertise. So I thought, okay, I don't know what it is. And when I figured it out, I understood that I had used my professional skills. I brought my professional skills home to raise my kids, and it had worked. And I had done it unknowingly. So I figured if it worked out for me doing this unknowingly, imagine how much better anyone who reads this will do if they actually exercise the same intentionally. So
Mhm.
it's a 25-year retrospective intended to help moms, mentors, entrepreneurs use their own superpowers to thrive in every aspect of life.
Beautiful. How can people work with you, Marjie?
I just reach out and
Do
we'll
you
figure
have
out
any
how I can be of
classes?
service.
Are there any online book clubs, anything that they can join as a group?
Oh, yes, of course. They can certainly sign up for my newsletter. They can join, there's a Facebook group,
Mhm.
which is very active. And if they'd like to work with me one on one, they can reach out to me and we will work things out according to whatever is needed. Everything in public relations, Rosalyn, is tailored. Every presentation that I do worldwide is tailored to the community that I'm addressing. And every VIP day that I do is also tailored to that person's interests, needs, and goals. Everything is very customized. It's focused so that we can achieve the goals.
All right, everyone. We're going to tie it up because you're going in and out, and I think everybody got the gist of everything that you said, but it's getting worse. So I think we should end on the note of buy the book if you're at all on the fence, or if you're at all motivated by new possibilities in how you can use your own PR genius to affect your lives in ways like Marjie has. She has 3 incredible children that I met at virtually, and it's very impressive. So thank you, Marjie, for hosting with me today and for sharing your passion for bringing people home. Nobody deserves what those people are experiencing. Bring the hostages home. Think of them as people, not as other, not as people in a country far away, not as Jews or Hamas people or Palestinians. People, let's just come together in that way and find ways in our own lives to make a difference in this. Thank you, Marjie.